Good evening. This is Assistant Professor James Cook of the University of Maine at Augusta, and tonight we are going to be looking at NodeXL's import features for social media, which you will be using to study some online groups. Now, I've asked you to find 6 associated online groups that have known membership. How can you find those? One of the ways to do that is to look at the NodeXL book for examples. You can find social media groups like Ravelry. This is page 139 that has a number of groups within it with members. This is an example. I don't want you to copy it, for goodness sake, but it might give you a little bit of inspiration. Something else to do is to look at what NodeXL can do, which is why we're going to be looking at NodeXL's import feature tonight. We'll start with Twitter, and we'll move on to Facebook, which requires a few more steps. I'm going to start NodeXL right now by typing NodeXL in after hitting the Start button key on my keyboard. As we wait for this to get started, let's consider what we're going to look at. I'm going to be looking tonight at a group called The Can Kicks Back. It says it is a millennial-driven campaign to solve America's fiscal crisis. It has a Twitter account. It has a Facebook account. The Can Kicks Back. We will also be looking at hashtags. Now, if we search for a hashtag for The Can Kicks Back, which is simply a number sign before a word, we only receive one response. Even if we hit, we don't want top results, we want all results, we only get one result. But we do see another hashtag here, which is like a search term for Twitter. That's called 10 million. When we type that in, oh my goodness, well, we get a lot of results. So we're going to look at the Can Kicks Back organization, which you can see here has a term, and we'll look at a hashtag, and we'll look at Facebook. We're ready to go. What we're going to do first, working with Facebook, I have to align my windows back, is we're going to hit import, click import, and we're going to see right away that there are 3 options actually, Twitter lists, Twitter searches, and Twitter users. Let's start with the Twitter user. And we're going to be looking for the user that Can Kicks Back. We're interested in people who follow the user. We could be interested in the people that the Can Kicks Back follows, but right now I'd like to know who's following this organization. And I would like to create an ego network around it. Now, if I look here at levels to include, I notice I could look at level 1.0, which is simply looking at the alters that ego generates and not the connections between those alters. To find the connections between those alters, I would go to level 1.5, which can tell me not just who the alters of this ego might be, but how connected they are to one another. I could go to level 2.0 and say, let's further go out and find all the people to whom those people are connected. That's going out a network distance of 2. Now that's dangerous if you are worried about Twitter rate limiting. Just think back to your family network exercise. Going out to a distance of 2, all of a sudden you generated this huge network. Not as huge as the network that you generated when you went to a distance of 3, but still pretty big. So for now, we're going to go to just 1.5. We made sure to sign up with Twitter and to authorize NodeXL to use the account to import Twitter networks. If you haven't done that yet, first you have to sign up for a Twitter account. You don't have to use it, but you do have to have a Twitter account, and then you would have to click that option there that you've not yet authorized NodeXL to use it. I'm selecting the bottom option, and I'm going to hit OK to add a vertex for each person following the user and add an edge for each followed or following relationship. And now we're going to pause. Okay, we've finished now, and I always want to continue with the import and see what I've got there. Okay, I have now a set of edges and vertices. Let's first find out how many vertices we have. I'm going to hit Control and the down key to get down to the bottom. 185 nodes. It's quite a few. And I am going to find out how many edges we have. 1,211. Quite a few more. You ready to see a graph? I am. Let's take a look. Oh, now, as usual, at first it looks like a mess. This is something that we're going to need to organize. What will we organize it by? Today I'm going to show you how to organize it by using autofill columns. Also by using these funny little triangles here, which can sort. And finally by creating groups, which are clusters of related vertices. In order to do these things, first we're going to calculate some metrics. We're going to start with some graph metrics. We're going to be interested in degree and in degree as well. And we will also take a look at betweenness and closeness centralities. Some people have argued eigenvector centrality is not appropriate when you have a directional relationship, and we do have directions since people follow other people. Accounts follow other accounts. We'll use these to start out with. Let's calculate our matrices. It doesn't take too long. There we are. Now we'll find for vertices a set of, if we scroll over, measurements in degree. The can kicks back is got the largest degree in degree with 182 other nodes attracted to it. It also has the largest betweenness centrality. That's not surprising. What we can do is we can begin to take these vertices, these nodes, and if we click this button right there, that selects all of our information, all of our data, and then we can then look at one of these triangles here, and we can begin to do some interesting stuff. Why don't we organize by degree? And let's select from largest to smallest. Now all of a sudden we found out who the people are, who the accounts are in the network that have the most others selecting them. These are all folks, by the way, if you remember, who have decided to follow the can kicks back. So, of those, Bowles Simpson, the Twitter account of Erskine Bowles and Alan Simpson, has the most others following them, followed by Budget Hawks, Fix the Debt, The Hill, which is an interested Capitol Hill newsletter, NoLabels.org, and Dave Walker, who starts the Comeback America initiative. Also Nick Troiano, who was the sole individual who used that hashtag that we looked at a little while ago, the can kicks back. Those are some individuals who are right at the top. Each of them has at least an in degree of 40, indicating that they're well selected by others. Betweenness centrality doesn't perfectly graph right alongside in degree. For instance, we'll notice that the Hill has a greater betweenness than Fix the Debt, even though Fix the Debt has a higher in degree. So the Hill is in between other nodes to a greater extent. But they roughly are analogous. So now we have some statistics describing each of these nodes. We can begin to try to organize this sociogram accordingly. A fun thing to do is to look for groups, to group by cluster, and to do that we are going to choose the Closet-Newman-Moore algorithm. These are just all different ways of trying to find groups of nodes that connect to one another especially. I'm going to hit OK. It's calculating some clusters now, and you'll notice we have group tabs now. I'm going to go straight over here to the layout menu. I'm going to pick Herald Core Fast Multiscale, which seems to be a pretty good spring embedding algorithm, a method. And then I'm going to go down to layout options. And under layout style, I'm going to select the idea that we are going to lay out each of the graphs groups in its own box and sort the boxes by group size. Okay. And then I'm going to hit OK. And hit refresh to make all that happen. Wow, okay. Now what have I had done here? I've got different groups that are connected to one another, connected within each other. I have a group here where people are especially likely to connect to one another. Some more groups over here where the density of connection is especially high, to use a term that we'll take a look at in more detail in future weeks. And that's certainly the case over here with red. We notice there's one particular node here that is highly involved, okay, and that is dgram KY for dgram Kentucky. You might want to look up who that is. But one thing that's really noticeable is that these groups are not entirely segregated. All of these groups of individuals are really quite involved, despite the fact that they're somewhat separated from one another. How can we try to find some structure, some meaning in this mess of nodes? Well, one way we can do that is that we can change the appearance of a node depending on which nodes are the most central, which ones are the most followed. So let's head over here and take a look at that. I just clicked autofill columns. And one thing I might do is I might take a look at vertex size. I'm going to click on this triangle and I'm going to select in degree, which I had NodeXL calculate. Now I'm going to go to options and hit the little arrow there for vertex size options. It tells me it's going to make the smallest number in the column 1.5. Well, why not just make it 1? And let's make the largest one, 10 is rather big, and this is a lot of nodes, so I'm going to say, how about 4? Okay, I'm going to click. You could click on this link to learn a little bit more about some options here about outliers and logarithmic mapping, but let's not get too fancy. I'm going to hit that and select that. So something else I might want to do is I might want to highlight particularly central figures. One way to do that is to look at vertex shape. And let's take a look at that a little bit. And let's take a look at betweenness centrality, which we calculated, and options. Oh, okay. Now, it's giving me all these options here about if the source column number is greater than something, then set the vertex shape to something else. Oh dear. Well, I didn't look up what those numbers are. So I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to close for now. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at my data. Let's do that together. Oh, we want to look at vertices, of course. And I see between this centrality is a number that varies widely. Let's sort here from largest to smallest. And I notice, well, I'm not going to want to have too many images here. There seems to be a natural cutoff here between above 100 and below 100. It's going to include a certain number, about 11 really involved figures. Let's make those people have images. I'm going to go back to autofill, and I'm going to have my options saved, which is handy. I'm going to go to options again. If the source column number, which is between this centrality, is greater than 100, then I'm going to say, let's set the vertex shape to an image, which NodeXL collects from Twitter, which is great. Otherwise, set the vertex shape to a disk, which is like a filled-in circle. That's great. Let's do that. And let's see what has happened here, okay? Let's click autofill. Okay, now we didn't get exactly what we had wanted, did we? We've got something close. Let's try refreshing. And let's look at vertices to figure out why we might not be getting exactly what we'd wanted. We certainly do have the high in degree nodes larger than the low in degree nodes like that, which are so small that they just look like the end of the line. So now we can tell something interesting, which is that these groups have a few people who are really, really important at the center of each of them. Here we have a relatively small node in terms of in degree, but it is larger than the others, and its name is Young Lobbyists. Interesting. We could look that up. What is keeping highly central nodes or vertices from having images? Well, there's something going on, which is that we created groups. And when we created groups, it created different colors for each of the groups. And so if we want to turn that feature off, we need to go to group options. Under groups, click that triangle and then hit group options. What colors should be used? What shapes should be used for the group's vertices? How about the shapes we specify in the shape column? The ones that we just changed, because these do say image over here. We'd like those to be the actual images used. Let's try hitting refresh and see what happens. Boom! That's great! Now, within this interactive tool of NodeXL, I can click that and I can find out, oh, see, it's highlighted it over here. That's the Ken Kicks Back. Great. Who's that? Jake D. Parent. Okay. Who's that? Oh, that's this Bowles Simpson Twitter network. Who's that? No labels. Young Lobbyists. YLN. Who's that? The Hill, which is covering it. This is a group called Kick the Debt. Dave Walker and Nick Troiano. Very interesting. These seem to be the most central folks. And they're larger too, which indicates that they also have high degree. In short, there seems to be, within each of these groups, some structure, even though there's a lot of communication within the groups. A small set of people who are driving Twitter patterns. Okay. Now, if we wanted to do this manually, we could. You'll notice that at the top here, there's a pretty clear delineation. All the folks at the top have image written down. All the folks at the bottom have disk written down. Why is that? Well, it's because we ordered this whole set of vertices, of nodes, according to betweenness centrality. That's handy. We could do that again by in degree, from largest to smallest, and we could then say, well, let's make those folks have a label, and those folks, we can set our own standard, maybe who have a 25 or above. That's these folks here. Okay. Through number 11. Well, let's give them labels. Okay, and let's refresh the graph. Oh, boom, there we go. Now they have labels. So we've just added a new layer of depth. You can do that manually, as you can see, by ordering statistics around. You could do that for the least central, the most central. You could go on and on. But I hope this is one example for you that you can use. Well, let's take a look at one more Twitter network that we could import, which is a search network. It's really different. Remember when we looked at the internet and, we were looking at the can kicks back and we were looking at Twitter, we discovered that they have a hashtag, which is kind of like a keyword. Hashtag 10 million. That's interesting. Why don't we look at that and see who's using that hashtag? Same people? Different people? Let's find out. Hashtag 10 million. Because this says up here, add a vertex for each person whose recent tweet contains hashtag 10 million. Now, I've set this up so under options up at the top so that I'll get a completely new network every time I do a different search. It is possible for you to change that. I believe under import, you can click import options, and you could unclick clear the NodeXL workbook before the data is imported, but I like that option. Someday you might not want to use that option. That's good to know. Okay, add a vertex for each person whose recent tweet contains 10 million. Now, just to be safe, so I don't hit the Twitter rate limiting, I'm going to say, let's do that since, what's today? Let's do it since 2012. It has a strange date format, 09/25. I'm just picking that. Let's 26 to be safe. Now this time I'm not going to select a following relationship. I want to know who's talking to who about this 10 million idea. So either a reply to, which is an @ and then an account at the beginning of a tweet. Remember, chapter 10 mentions this. Or a mention, which is when you put that the @ and then a name of an account in the middle of a tweet. Let's not limit this to 100 people. But let's add a tweet column to the Edges worksheet. Perhaps I might want to know what the most common phrases are that they're using. And let's add a statistic column to the vertices worksheet. It'll be kind of cool. You could get URLs in tweets expanded, but I'm not going to do that right now because I don't want to slow this down. The reason you do that, by the way, is if you have a shortening service like Bitly. Oh, wow, well, that was quick. So this is a set of how many vertices? 89. Okay, and how many edges? Wow, just 17. Okay, let's refresh that graph. Well, this is really different. Okay, this is less than I thought, which is great. So, you go back and I could tinker, or, why don't we take a look and see what we have here now? Okay, I could take a look at the tweets themselves. And notice people are not using this hashtag 10 million always to refer to the 10 million notion that Nick Troiano was referring to. Someone refusing to accept 10 million. Oh my goodness. Some things that are a little strange. Somebody who's known as El Chapo or Shorty. Okay, so sometimes you get a bit of a surprise, but we can still characterize this. We can find out some things about the individuals who are using these terms. We got some statistics about them. We know how many people follow them, how many followers they have, how many people they follow. We can figure out how many tweets they've sent. We can figure out when they joined Twitter. That's pretty cool. And if they had a time zone, we would be able to put that in. Oh, look, someone's writing from Greenland, someone from Paris, someone from Alaska. Usually those are less liable to be included. But that's great. Let's start to do some autofilling. Maybe the vertex size is this time going to be due to how many followers one has. Maybe the vertex shape is going to be joined Twitter date. Let's see if these work by looking at options. Great. We're going to map this from 1 to 4. Okay, depending on that, how it goes. And joined Twitter date. Oh my goodness. See, now this might not work, because if you look at the joined Twitter date, that's a set of text, isn't it? And the autofill column is asking for a particular number. So this is a good time to perhaps, well, I'll show you in a minute. Let's go back here. Let's clear this, and we'll select vertex shape differently in a minute. Let's refresh the graph. Okay. And we don't seem to have any differences. That's because I didn't hit autofill, I believe. There we go. Wow, that made a lot of people really small. Let me change those around so that we go up to vertex 1.5 size for someone, okay? And remember, this is followers, okay? Autofill. Interesting. Okay, so if let's close this for a minute and change the graph options so we can increase the arrow size a little bit here. Okay, and let's curve those so we can be sure who's connecting with who, just for fun. Yeah, that's good. Okay, who's connecting with that one right there? Someone there. Let's pick them out. Oh, this is sometimes the hardest thing to do. There we go. And that person right there. Okay. We'll move these folks out here to separate them from that wheel. But interestingly enough, there's one really big variation. There is one account here, Ryan Whitney, who really has a bigger size. There are a few people who have a size of 1.6, but Ryan Whitney has a lot of followers, 96,980. Why? Because that's the official Twitter of an Edmonton Oilers defenseman, Ryan Whitney. Interesting. I'm not a hockey person, so I wouldn't know that. But there we are. And clearly, a lot of people are doing what? They're involved in edges, in which they're writing in. Okay. Quite interesting there. So changing the size of the nodes gives us something visual to work with here. But one of the things I said was, hey, we'd like to maybe organize shape according to when they joined Twitter. How do we do that if that's partially text? Well, let's see if we can sort it. That's a good start. Let's select oldest to newest. Hey, it works. 2008. That's pretty old for Twitter. Up to 2012. Someone who just joined a few days ago. So what we can do now is we can say, just looking at these, going through the order, let's set a cutoff date. Let's make the people who joined in 2008 and 2009 have a certain, okay, and notice I'm going to head right over now. We're going to give them a certain shape. Let's see what kind of shape is possible. I'm going to select a triangle for these people, and that's a number 8. How do I know that? Because I looked there. I put my cursor right over there. Okay, and now we can head back over and we can say, what about 2010 and 2011? Those people will give a different shape. I'm going to go down until I find 2011. We're very close to the end. A lot more people joined then. Let's give those folks a different shape. Maybe shape 5. Let's find out what that is. Okay, I'm going to go look up at the top here. Okay, we'll do 5s all the way down. I could continue just to type 5s, or I could select those and then hit that little tiny square and drag it down. There we go. What is 5? You have to go up to close to the top to find out that a 5 is a solid square. Okay, and the rest of them, we'll let them be circulars. Oh, great. Oh, we have triangles, squares, and circles. Okay, so you can work with this. It's great. A second kind of feature to work with there. And what about Facebook? How would you work with Facebook? I have something that you may not have right now. When I click import, I have something here about Facebook personal networks and Facebook fan page networks. Oh, sweet. How did I get that? I went down to this option that said Get Third-Party Graph Data Importers. And I went over here and I selected Social Networks. When I did that, a web page loaded. And that is from the Social Media Research Foundation, a reputable site. And it is a social network importer for NodeXL. This is an extension of NodeXL. And it says, what can you do? Well, you'd go through and read it, and you'd find out you can easily import ego and fan page networks from Facebook with a newly updated social network importer for NodeXL. Sweet. When was it updated? Oh, just a few days ago, Monday, September 10th. What I would do is, and only 419 people have downloaded it. I'm one of them. You might be the next. I would go then and I would, well, before I download, I would maybe read what it does. That'd be nice. Okay, it tells me all kinds of deal. How to install. Always good. It says, oh, you need to close NodeXL. Good to know. I'm going to close NodeXL. No, let's not save this. Then download the zip file. Okay, that would be the download thing. Then unzip it. And I go find two items, DLL files. These are little bits of script. Copy those files to the Node in plugins directory. And it tells you where that's going to be. C, program files, Social Media Research Foundation. Plugins. Okay. That indicates sub folders. And then restart NodeXL. Great. So I would go and, hit the download button up there and do just what it said. You give me a zip file, and I would go ahead and do that. I'm not going to do that today, but you can do that at home. And then I'd restart NodeXL, and I did this, and it worked. Now, once you do this, you're going to have to tie in your Facebook account if you have one. And if you don't have one, you're going to need to get one. You won't have to use it for this class, but you'll have to have one if you're going to do some Facebook analysis. Facebook, another good place to find groups. What are these groups called? They're called pages. Okay, but before we think about pages, we could just talk about personal networks. Okay. Now, in order to do this, you have to log in to Facebook. I've already logged in before, so it has my personal information associated with the Facebook account. You'd need that. It'll prompt you for it. What kind of information do I want to get? This is going to be a bit of a surprise. There's a lot of stuff that you can get. You can get information about what relationship people are in, their political views, what music they like, their religion. That's pretty heady stuff. And then we have this question, should we include me in the networks? Oh, why not? Okay, we're not going to get status updates or wall posts today, but you certainly could play with that. Now I'm going to click Login. And that's the spot at which it would say, hey, wait a minute, you haven't given me a Facebook account yet. Please do that. You would have to do that. And then you notice that this button has appeared now that says Download. So I'm going to click Download. Now, we may have trouble. We may not. Sometimes you will encounter an error message. Usually the error message occurs when you have selected a field that no longer exists for Facebook. Yes, Facebook deletes some kind of information sometimes. If that happens, you need to pay attention in the error field, figure out which one that is, deselect it, and try again. This is a beta tool, which means doesn't always work. Check that out. Do you see that? That's huge, isn't it? The network couldn't be obtained. What does that mean? It means I need to simplify what I'm doing and try again. What are some of the... So I'm going to... Oh dear, it's frozen. I'm going to wait a moment. Hit cancel. Then I'm going to try again. But this time I'm going to be a lot more selective. In fact, I'm going to double click include. Include everything, then not include things. Now I'm going to select just a few things. I want to know a person's first name. I'm not even going with last names on this. I want to know what their sex is, what their relationship is. Most people include those. I want to include me in the network, and I'm going to try again. And now I'm going to download. Let's see what happens. Whenever you encounter an error, always go for the simpler information. Whenever you're on the cutting edge, you run into errors. It's one of the things you need to get used to. See, it worked. Okay, always try simplifying if you get errors. Ow. Okay, there are a lot of people here. Okay, and I am going to ask that the first names be those that I use as my labels. And now I am going to show my graph. Oh my goodness, look at all those people. Isn't that lovely? Okay, I am going to now try to arrange it with multi-scale. And I'm also going to create some groups. Oh, that was group options. I actually want to group by cluster. Okay, and let's put all... I would say all the neighborless vertices into one group, but of course they're all tied to me. So I'm just going to click OK. It's created some groups. And then I'm going to ask within the groups to put people in space through Spring embedding. Sweet. Okay. I can go to layout options for the groups. I want to lay them out according to their group memberships. And let's take away those boxes by taking the box outline down to 0. Refresh. And now I've discovered something really interesting. Okay, what I have here are two groups that seem somewhat distinct. I'm going to select these nodes and see, not that node, just these nodes. And I'm going to see if they're at all connected to the light blue group. I suspect not. Nope. Look at that. This is a set of people over here, okay, to whom I have a relationship, and some set of people over here to whom I have a relationship. Can you guess what the distinction might be? Yeah, sure, you might be able to. I can do all sorts of things. I can go to autofill columns, and I can select vertex color. Oh, let's do that by sex. And let's go to options. Oh, check this out. This source columns values, sex is not going to be, it's going to be like male, female, I believe. So that's categories, not numbers. Obviously, male, female is not numbers. And it says, wow, each category will be mapped to a unique color. Now, when I do this, I'm going to come up with a problem. What's my problem? Well, they're the same colors. You should remember why. That's because with groups, it wants to control colors. So I'm going to say, no. Give me the colors that other process specified. And now, oh, isn't that interesting? I have all kinds of connections here. Okay, the groups are still evident, and at the same time, I have information about boys connecting with boys and girls connecting with girls, and sometimes boys and girls connecting with one another. Sweet. This is great. I could do similar operations with, inverted vertices with relationship status. People are in a relationship, they're single, they're married, or they tell you it's none of your business. Some people are engaged. Congratulations, by the way. I could play with this. It's great. In fact, I encourage you to play with it. Try to extract some meaning out of it. The last thing I'm going to show you tonight is going to be somewhat hypothetical, and that's the Facebook fan page import. It looks like this. If I were interested in the group The Can Kicks Back, I'd select that. I could either choose a user-to-user network based on co-likes or co-comments, based on a certain number of posts. I could log in and download that information if it worked for me. But it's very new as a feature within the last month, and I've found it to be not quite ready for prime time. It frequently breaks down, and tonight is one of those nights. You could certainly give it a shot and see what you get, but I give you no guarantees, and I actually cannot show you the results tonight. After some time attempting a download, it seems to hang. So, for tonight, this is all I can show you. But I hope I've been able to show you a lot. And everything I've shown you has contained real data, which I think has some value to it. It's your turn now to go out there and grab some real data from the real world of online connection and see what kinds of patterns you can find and what kind of patterns you can show through sorting columns and doing some autofilling and calculating some graph metrics. Have a good night and best of luck to you.